And we are live. G'day everyone, Mike Jeffrey here, and you are listening to My Creative Journey, episode number 9. To all you new listeners out there, hello and thank you so much for taking the time to stop by here today. As I said, my name is Mike and I'm a freelance photographer from Sydney, Australia. Each week on the show, I bring you guys along on the highs and lows of my own creative journey and share all the knowledge that I've gained along the road to building my own freelance business. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking all about the art of the sale and letting you guys in on a few mistakes that I've made throughout my journey. Being an artist is just as much about being a creative as it is about being a good business person. And boy, haven't I learnt that the hard way. But it isn't all bad. There are a few simple yet effective techniques that you can use to help you get past the anxiety of selling yourself and your art. But before I jump into today's topic, I want to take some time to talk about what has been going on this past week. And what a week it has been. I know I say it every week, but I feel like this past week has been such a monumental week, I would say. I think it's going to be one of the ones that I look back on at the end of the year and moving forward and remember this one week because it really cemented my place in really trying to know where I am trying to head to and know my direction for the future. And I think, just so much has happened over this past week. But first, I want to touch on last week's episode. I wanted to just speak on that a little bit because last week's episode I felt like was so draining to edit and have to hear back myself. So I can imagine if anyone was out there having to listen to that episode. If you did listen to last week's episode, thank you so much for staying the journey with it because I'm sure that was tough and that would not have been easy to listen to. I know myself having to go through it and edit it. I had to chop out a lot of stuff in there. I was just rambling for most of the time. And it didn't really make a lot of sense. I think at the end I did drive home a few good points that I wanted to make and a few of the things that I was excited to talk about in last week's episode because they are things that have worked for me and things that I've definitely gone through with being way too occupied with my own work and not taking enough time for myself and not allowing myself to sit back and think about things. And I think that is so important, especially when you're in business and you're trying to make your own creative choices and try to push the business forward. You can't really be open to new opportunities if you're never giving yourself the chance. So that's really the message that I wanted to drive home last week. I hope that you guys were able to grab that from that episode if you did listen to it. And once again, thank you. But in this week's episode, I feel like I'm a lot more energized. I know I said last week it was a journey trying to start the recording for last week's episode. There were a few things wrong with the recording software, and so as we went through, it was an hour before I started recording from the time I sat down, and there were just a few other things happening last week, and it was just a very stressful time. So I'm a lot more excited for this week's episode and very happy to sit down here. With that being said, I'm trying to make this episode a bit shorter than last week's. Last week's I spoke for an hour and 15. As I said, it was mostly just me rambling, and so I'm trying to make a conscious effort to not speak for more than probably 45 minutes today because the amount that I had to slice out of last week's episode was unbelievable, and I really don't have that much amount of time to be able to sit there editing because that episode probably took me about 5 or 6 hours to edit, which is unbelievable considering it only goes for about 40 minutes. And I'm trying to upload one every Monday, so it becomes a bit draining when that is the process. So hopefully this week's will be a lot shorter and sharper. But this week we have a few things to talk about because this is the week that I finally put the call to action out about me wanting to start in wedding photography. And anyone who's been listening to the podcast since week 1 will know that this has been one of the biggest goals for me for this year, to try and push forward into wedding photography. And so you probably heard me speak about it since week 1 and that I've been wanting to try and put it out there and trying to get it in front of as many people as I can. And this week was finally the week. I'd been sort of tossing up when to sort of put that news out there. I didn't want to be too premature and not have things in place and not be prepared for the amount of emails and amount of messages and the amount of work that was about to come my way. So I didn't want to throw it out too early, but I also didn't want to hold on too long because I have been known in the past to just hold on to things and can let them get out of hand in a way that they never actually come to the surface. So I'm glad that I got that up there this week. And so if anyone does have my photography business on either Instagram or Facebook, you would know I did put up a post offering to shoot some weddings for free. And this is something that I spoke about, I think it was episode 4 in Why You Should Work for Free. And I knew that this was the approach that I wanted to take. I knew that I wanted to create a lot of demand for my work. And so the fastest way to do that for someone who has never worked in an industry is to provide a service for free. And I've been thinking about it a lot, and offering the service for free for me was something that allowed me to ease the nerves around, first off, starting, but second off, not having any proof of concept in a way, I guess, because it's not something that I've ever done before. And so charging someone for something that I can't even provide examples of, I feel like is out of the scope of something that I would feel comfortable trying to do. And so offering it for free, eases some of those nerves, but also allows me to walk in with a slightly decreased expectation, because it's then up to the person to ask me to photograph them for free. And it's not me saying to a client that is offering to pay for my services that, oh no, I'll just shoot this one for free so the expectations come down. This is me saying, I'll shoot for free if you would like it, and then therefore hoping that the people that respond are only people who would then feel comfortable with me shooting their wedding. And of course, I made it very clear that this was going to be one of the first ones that I've ever done. And so having that there and having that known at the start, I think is so important. And I think a lot of people were very receptive to that. And a lot of people were understanding of the fact that, I was just starting in this industry and I understand why you would do this for free, and I'm happy to help out, and here's this, that, and the other. And some people even offered out of the kindness of their heart to actually pay for the services, and that sort of blew me away, because here's me offering to do something for free, but people in their own hearts have been able to find it to not accept that and sort of throw it back at me and say, no, your work is actually worth something, which is a whole thing that I could speak about all day. And it probably is something that I am going to make another episode about, is being able to value your own work. And it's definitely something that I do. I definitely value my own work, but I've spoken about why I think working for free in the start is important. And I was very clear in my own mind about the fact that I would only shoot a select number for free. And of course, I wanted them to be in the near future, if possible, so that then I could get more material and more proof and more advertising to then go forward into the next year and hopefully expand the business from there. It was a very nerve-wracking experience for me, because it had not been something that I'd sort of thrown out there before, something as large as this that I'd been wanting to do. I think once you put something out into the world, it then solidifies the fact that it's real, and it allows you to be opened up to criticism from a lot of different people, especially if you don't proceed in that direction, which has been something that I myself have been guilty of over the past year or so, is starting down a road and then taking a hard right turn and then moving into something completely off course. So for me to put this out there and for me to accept clients in not just the near future, but in the long-term future, we're talking end of next year, in 18 months' time, to accept a client means that I have to be in it for the long term. I have to still be prepared to accept someone that far down the road. I know when I started my business back the start of last year, I was never intending to take photos of people, full stop. That was not something I wanted to do. That was never something that came across my mind, because that just seemed so scary. And to have to work with other people and have that many expectations on me was definitely not something that I wanted to do. And so, as you guys probably know, I started in food and product photography, because that to me was something that was disconnected enough from people that I could remove that expectation and remove the confrontation as well, and the anxiety around actually turning up to the photo shoot. And I think I'm glad that I did that at the start, because it sort of showed me how I could perform when taking photos. It allowed me to build confidence. And so once the confidence was built, it sort of dropped that barrier between wanting to shoot for other people. And so I then moved into that. And so now I think I've gotten to a point where I feel comfortable that in the long term, I can stick with this. And this is something that I'm really wanting to commit to, and something that I'm so excited to work forward with in the future. And I think being able to have that out there and being able to have it out in the world now, with so many people having heard about it, it can only help in the way that it's going to drive me forward. It can only help with when everyone asks me how the business is, they know where I'm headed. They know the journey that I'm on because I've now put that out there in the world, and people can then actively support me and inspire me to keep going on that journey because they know what journey I'm on. It's so hard for someone to try to support if they don't know where you're trying to get to. So for me, it was sort of that. I was scared to put it out there, but also relieved and excited to put it out there as well because I knew that it would be such a big thing, and I was so glad to finally push through and finally get it up because this has been one of my biggest goals for this year so far, and probably for the past few years. It's been one of the biggest things that I've been really wanting to do, and so to get it out there was just such a big relief. I was asked a question through the week after I posted about my journey and after I told my story online. I was asked if I was scared that no one would take up the offer of me shooting their wedding for free. And to be honest, I was mildly concerned about the fact that no one would trust me to take photos on what is probably the most important day of anyone's life. And I think that was an implanted insecurity of mine in the fact that I just didn't think the skills that I had were up to standard. I did, of course, otherwise I wouldn't have put it out there, but I thought that is not what I was portraying, and that was not what other people would think, because other people can't see what's below the surface and can't see the work and the time and energy that I do actively spend working in this industry. And so that was genuinely a concern for me. But overall, I thought the offer was probably too good to be true and too good to turn down. So I was glad, and I'm very happy to say that I did get so many people responding and emailing me through the week, and so many messages of not only people asking if I could come photograph their wedding for free, but also, as I said, people asking if I could come photograph their wedding for an amount that I would be okay with. And that, to me, really blows my mind, because this time last week, I would have never thought that I'd be in the position that I am now. And that's why I said at the start of this episode that this week is probably going to be one of the ones that I do look back on, and I'm so glad that I finally put it out there in front of the world and gave people the opportunity to support me and to allow me to grow this business and grow in the dreams that I have in my own life. So that's just such a relief off my own back, and something that I don't know why I was so stressed about. I don't know why I was worried that no one would take up the offer. To be honest, I probably could have just had it out there and not had it for free, and people still would have taken up the offer. But as I said, I wouldn't have felt comfortable with that, and I'm so glad that I did put it out there for free, because in turn it's going to ease my nerves. When I do eventually walk into my first wedding and start to take photos, it's going to be so much more at ease, and I feel like it's going to be so much more of a relaxed environment, because I know that the people who I'm taking the photos for are very comfortable having me there. But not only that, they're not going to have the same expectation as someone who was paying an exuberant amount of money for a photographer, and they know that it's my first time and they know all this. So that really eases the nerves, and I'm so glad that I get that opportunity now to actually go out and try my skills. And I'm so looking forward to when I get to finally shoot my first wedding. Anyway, that's probably enough about that side of the journey through this week. I know it's been a big week for me, and I've been responding to so many emails. I've had a huge influx of new people starting up conversations with me online, and I've been trying to go through all the stuff, all the admin stuff behind the scenes, and trying to get that ready, trying to get things out to people and trying to send out different things, because as I said, I've got a few weddings booked in already this year, so the planning is already well underway for those, and I feel like they're going to creep up on me a lot faster than I'm prepared for. So I've been trying to get a lot of the correspondence and a lot of the admin work done and out of the way before I walk into those. And so that has been a big portion of my week. But also something else that happened last week was that I was sent a message on probably Monday or Tuesday, probably Tuesday, because I recorded last week's episode on Tuesday, so it must have been Tuesday. And someone had messaged me on Instagram and asked me if I could take photos of a proposal in Sydney. And now this is something that I haven't actually done before. It was something I am actively advertising it on my website as a service that I can provide, but it's never been something that I've actually done before. And so I was a bit surprised when the person messaged me, to be honest, because it's not as if I didn't think I was up to the task, but I was like, how did you find me? How did you feel comfortable with me taking the photos? Like, I was overly surprised, but I was also very excited at the opportunity because I knew this would help so much with walking in and having sort of the same situations that you would have on a wedding day, being the fact that you've only got one chance to take the shot. And I was so excited to get that opportunity to practice in such a short photo shoot where it's a more controlled environment and you're not there for as long, and you just have to get that one shot, and then afterwards we wanted to have a few photos, but it's mainly focused on that one shot. And I thought that would be such a great experience. And so we had a chat about it and we worked it out, and we ended up having the proposal last Saturday night. And that was such an incredible experience as well. That was a first for me again, and a first that I really enjoyed. I must say it was super nerve-wracking having only that one chance to get the shot, and it was in the evening, it was after dark. We were trying to make the photo in pretty bad lighting conditions, but in the end, all that sort of adds to the experience and adds to the fact that I will always remember that one because of how hard it was. And I think that has been the most tested that I've ever been on a photo shoot. I do most of my photo sessions outside in the afternoon, on sunset, as the sun is at the perfect angle in the sky and we're getting beautiful light through, and there's not really a lot to have to deal with as a photographer. But on this instance, it was completely different to that. We're shooting super dark. I didn't know the angles. I didn't know where I needed to be. I was sort of all happened in a split second, and I had to get into positions and taking photos from different angles using a zoom lens from a long way back, and it was just all happened so fast. But in the end, I was so glad that I was able to be a part of that special moment. So yeah, overall, this week has been pretty good for me. I've really enjoyed it. It's been stressful, but I think, yeah, it's going to be one of those weeks that I do look back on and remember as a real sort of turning point in this career of mine. Not only a turning point in the way that I'm trying to steer into a different aspect of photography, but also just a turning point with my own self and my own self-worth. I think the fact that I have come to in this past week that, yeah, I am actually able to do this as a career, and yeah, this is something that I can see myself working towards and working hard at in the long term, because all the hard work that I've been doing up till now, I feel like hasn't really paid off. But through this week, I think all that groundwork that I did last year sort of came to the forefront and came to fruition in a way that it has helped me so much get through this past weekend. When people ask me questions, I know how to answer them. When people are throwing words and terms at me that the average person may not know about different things involving photography, I was able to send them in the right directions. And that for me was such a relief that I had done that groundwork before and had the stuff already on my website and had emails all ready to go, because without that would have been such a stressful week. And it really did show me that, yeah, all this is actually working. We're actually getting somewhere. And it's such a relief, I guess, because for me, I just haven't really seen that much of a progression so far. And I'll speak about this in really what I'm talking about today in today's episode. But for me, it's been sort of an up and down, a continual sort of flow of me being in this business. And I know the old adage of you're not really going to see any growth or you're not going to make any money in your first year in business. And I was completely aware of that and completely okay with that when I started in the business last year. And to be honest, I haven't made any money up until now. I still haven't got to the point where I've broken even, but I know that we're working towards something now. I can feel an upward trend. Even if we are still underground, I can still feel myself moving in the right direction, which just adds so much energy. And I'm so glad that that has happened and we feel like we're off to the races. So I'm super excited to see where we go moving forward. And now let's move on to the topic of today's podcast, which is strangely titled The Art of the Sale. And it's kind of to do with what I'm talking about, but it's sort of the opposite in that I don't really have any experience with the art of the sale because I've come to the conclusion that I'm a terrible salesperson and I have no idea what I'm trying to do in business in trying to sell any of my own products, any of my own services. I'm very bad at it. And that is where the idea for this week's episode came from. You guys may not have realized, but a few weeks ago, I actually closed my print store on my website. And the print store is something that I launched way back in probably September last year, after having so many messages from everyone under the sun, every person would message me and ask me if I did prints of my photos. So if you guys aren't aware, I do quite a bit of landscape photography on the side, I guess now. So that is what they were really inquiring about back then. And I had so many messages that I just thought I really had to put something out there, and I really didn't have a lot of income at the time. I really wasn't making a lot of money, and so I thought, why not spend the time trying to build up my print store? If it is something that I get an inquiry once every, I was probably having an inquiry once every probably 2 weeks. So if I was going to get that, it's probably worth the time and the investment in trying to get it up. And so I did back in September, but it's just been so hard to maintain versus the time that I could be spending trying to build up my wedding photography business and all the stuff on the back end there. It just wasn't able to stay viable. And it's for a few reasons, I guess, because the first comes down to the fact of how I wanted to run the store, and I wanted it to be super personal. I didn't want to outsource it to a third-party provider. I didn't want to just add my images up on someone else's website and have them print them, and you could order off them and they would directly send you the print, and then I'd get paid, but then they would get paid a commission from that. I didn't really want that type of service. It's not that I wasn't happy for someone else to do the work. I just wanted to be involved, and I wanted it to be super personal. I like holding each one of the prints in my hands before I'm able to send it out to a client. I don't love the impersonal nature of ordering it off someone else's website and just having it sent to you. I think that is super, almost lazy in a way, because then there's no reason why you would order your artwork off a particular artist. You could just walk onto anyone's photography website and order an image off them, and it really wouldn't matter who it was turned up. But if you want an image from me, I wanted to make it more personal, and so I wanted to add my own touches in. I wanted to put things in the box before I had it sent out, and so that was really how I wanted to approach it. And I wanted it to be sort of a premium service where I was producing these prints on a limited run, and so that was taking up so much time. In the end, it wasn't something that was viable and something that I could maintain, even though it didn't involve a lot of upkeep outside of the times when people weren't ordering, but it involved a lot of upkeep in advertising the print store and also uploading images to the print store. So uploading new images that people could then get, and uploading things and exporting them the right way and making sure that they were good, and doing all the mock-ups for that. It was just taking too much time. But the second reason, I think, and probably the most important reason, was that I didn't actually make any money out of it. And this comes back to me being a terrible salesperson, but I just want to first touch on how much I did make or how much I did lose out of the print store, and be open and transparent with you guys, because I always want this podcast to be open, and I want it to be a realization of how I am in business, and I want you guys to be in on it. And I also want it to be something that I can look back on, and something that if I was listening to this podcast when I first started out, something that I could actually take information from. And so I always want it to be open and transparent. And I don't think we should have the stigma around money and finances that we do in today's society. It's really become such a taboo topic that you can't talk about how much money you've made in a certain area or how much money you've lost in a certain area. And I really don't appreciate that, and I don't enjoy that in a way, because you never get to see where other creatives are. You never get to see the struggle. You never get to see what they've done right and what they've done wrong. And I think a lot of people try and hide a lot of that below the surface and don't like to share that. And I don't really want to be like that. Even though I know that there aren't a great deal of people actually listening to this podcast, I'm sure that the people who are would love to know this information. So I am going to share it regardless. So off my prints that I've actually sold, my actual prints that are large prints, I lost about $700 probably. And that basically came in the way of ordering proofs for most of the prints before I got them done, because I wanted to check the image quality. I wanted to check how they would come up before I uploaded them on the store. I didn't want to make them available if they weren't going to come back and be of high enough quality, or they weren't accurate or didn't look great. And I didn't want to have something there that I wasn't comfortable with. And we'll speak about that in a minute and why that was important. But yeah, I had to do so many proofs at the start, and obviously that's a big expense up front that I really didn't think about until I was like, oh, I can't really send someone a photo that I'm not happy with myself. So if I want this to be that type of service, then I need to order them in and need to make sure and check them and make sure that, yeah, they're okay and that they would look good and they're up to a certain standard that I would hold myself to. I also had to order all the cardboard boxes to be able to get them sent out. I had to update the website to be able to accept orders and all that sort of jazz. And in the end, I probably only got about 3 orders off the whole print store over the past probably 6 months. So I really haven't made a lot of money there. But you guys may remember that I did sell calendars at the end of 2020 for 2021. So I made those available in November. And I sold quite a few of those, actually. I sold about 30 of those in the end, 30 or 32 or something like that in the end. And I actually made quite a bit of income off those. But it isn't until you look at the expenditure and how much I spent on ordering them and how many I over-ordered that you realize I actually lost money on those as well. So I only lost about $100 on those. And in the end, I was pretty happy to walk away with that, trying to be an even project. I didn't want to charge an exuberant amount of money for my calendars because I knew they were all probably going to go to friends and family. And so I've always been someone who said I don't want to make all my money off my friends and family. If that's the only reason I'm in business, then I'm not really in business if I'm just making money off friends and family. So that was why they were priced the way they were. And really it came down to a mistake that I made, that I ordered way too many, and I ordered them before the orders had come in. And so I made sure I had stock before I opened up orders to everyone, because I knew there was going to be a long turnaround and I wanted to get them out as early as I could. And the best way I could do that was order them in before people had actually ordered them from me. And that actually turned out to be a big mistake, because if I'd not done that, I probably would have ended up making about $300 off them. So it's not much, but still that would have been a little bit to go towards how much I had lost on the other prints last year. So that really rounds out why I'm deciding to close the print store, because it hasn't been as much of a success as I thought it would be. To be honest, I thought it would be a success. And this is sort of a lesson in the fact that as a photographer, people are going to ask you for work, but it's not until you actually put a price on the work that they will actually say yes or no. And so I had so many people asking me last year, do you do prints of your artwork? It's amazing. I love your work. Do you do prints? At the time I said no, because I didn't. And then I released the print store, and then I would message them and say, hey, here's my print store. I've just put all these images up. I know you love this one. It's on there. And they would get back to me, and then I'd just never hear from them, because clearly the amount that I was charging for them was out of what they were expecting to pay. And so in that way, I did put a price on my art, because I didn't want to be just producing artwork for everyone, and maybe that was to my detriment, but I didn't want to undervalue the work that I was producing and undervalue the effort and the time that I had to put in it. I didn't want it just to be up for grabs for everyone, and in 5 years look back and say every man and his dog has an artwork of mine, so they're really not worth anything. So I wanted them to be a little bit valuable. So having them priced the way they were was probably the main way that I could do that, and it was an easy way to see who actually was interested in purchasing my art. The main reason that my print store didn't succeed in a way probably is because I was a bad salesperson, and I said that, and now I just want to prove to you that I am a bad salesperson, and that really comes down to the fact that I didn't believe in the product. It's super tough to be able to push something out into the world if you don't believe in it. And it's not that I didn't think the images were great. I did, but I was in there way too soon. I wasn't prepared for what I would have to do. And to be honest, I didn't really want to have to push the products, because I knew the more I pushed them, the more I'd have to work to get them out, and which was a whole other issue completely on the side. But I didn't really want to have to actually make them available and order them in and actually do all the work, which is really one of the biggest reasons why I probably shouldn't have even opened the store in the first place, because I clearly wasn't ready if that was the mentality that I was walking in there with. But also I didn't believe in the products, because I was comparing myself to other people who had prints, and I was thinking, how could you want to order a print off me when there's so many other different people out there who have their artwork up for sale, and their work is so unique and so incredible compared to mine. It's not that I didn't think my work was good, but I didn't think it was print worthy. I didn't think anyone would want to have them actually hung on their wall. So why was I going to try and jam that down someone's throat who probably really didn't want that anyway? I have images that I've had printed out in my own apartment here, and I stare at them and think, that's a terrible photo. Why would I hang that on the wall? And so I could not imagine one of those works being in someone else's house, because if I ever walked in there and saw that on the wall, I'd probably just fall over and pass out, because as any artwork, as it grows in age, I look back on my old work and think, God, that's terrible. And so I could never push that on anyone else. And so as time went on, the images that I had there were just getting worse and worse, in my opinion. So I was struggling to try and push them out and ask anyone to actually purchase one. I think one of the other things that really held me back was the fact that I had no understanding of how I should price them, or when I should run a discount or something like that, or when I should put them on sale or anything like that. And my advertising around the whole thing was honestly non-existent, because I just didn't put the effort into it. And after it started up, I really didn't take the time to go back every month and update the images or update the advertising for them or have them on sale once every 2 months. I really didn't do anything like that. And the pricing for me was such a strange thing, because I didn't know what the value of them was, because I'd never been someone who'd been into art, but I was also starting out, so I didn't want to hand them away for free, but I also didn't want to charge through the roof so that people would never purchase them. But I also wanted to be able to have a price that I'd feel comfortable if I reduced them on sale to still have them at that price. So it was all just way too much for me at the start, and I didn't know anything about any of that. And I think that's where I really got myself into quite a bit of trouble. And so in the end, it sort of just fizzled out, and I never really advertised it anywhere, and I was never getting any sort of traffic on the website and on that page. So it really sort of just died out. And so that is why in the end I decided to close the store, because it had become more of a hassle and I really wasn't keeping it updated whatsoever. I hadn't updated it in probably 3 or 4 months. So I'm glad that I've closed it now and sort of closed that chapter. I'm not saying I won't go back to opening the print store again. I'm sure I'll get to a point where I'm very stable in the business and very comfortable spending the time and to print those quality artworks and have them for sale and have images here every now and again. But I certainly will learn a lot from that experience of opening that print store and learn what it's like to actually sell products, because it was such a struggle and there was a lot of behind the scenes that really dragged on me and really dragged me down into thinking that it was never something that I could do. But now looking back on it, I'm excited for the next journey that I do go on in that, because I think I've learnt so much from that time that I spent researching and planning and investing in trying to sell those products. So how can I learn from my business going forward, and what are some of the things that I am going to take forward? And I think one of the biggest things is that I need to learn to genuinely believe in the services or the products that I provide, because that, as I said, is one of the biggest things that did hold me back. And there's no doubt about that. And the fact that I was undervaluing the work that I had out there, I was comparing myself to everyone else and saying that my work couldn't be as good as someone else, so why would you want to come to me? And I had to really change that, and I've really done that in my business now, I think, in that I'm comfortable advertising for the services that I provide. I am very confident with the work that I do now, in the fact that for me, comparison really doesn't play a big role, because I know that I'm not competing with the people who are at the top. I know I'm not at the top yet, so I can't be competing with them. And so the quality of my work stands above what I think it needs to be. And that is something that gives me so much confidence, because it allows me to sort of sit back on that and just allow that to speak for itself. If I didn't believe in the quality of the work, or I didn't like the work that I was trying to do, you wouldn't see me out there trying to push the work. As I said, I didn't enjoy what I was trying to do before. I didn't enjoy having to create those artworks. So why was I ever going to go and try to push that when that would create more work for me? But at the moment, I'm enjoying the work that I'm trying to do. So I'm trying to get more clients. I'm trying to push my business forward and try and push myself, whether it be taking photos for any number of people. It wouldn't matter, because I'm enjoying the work that I've done. You won't probably see me advertise a lot of family photography, because family photography isn't a route that I really want to head down. It's not a path that I see being super interesting for myself and not something that I overly enjoy. Am I happy to go do family work? Of course I am, but I'm not going to advertise it, because I don't want to push that as a service that I provide. I'm happy to still do the work, and I'm happy in myself that I will do a good job of the work, but I'm not going to push that, because it's not something that I actively want to pursue. Whereas in my wedding photography, or even in my couples photography, I really enjoy that style of work. And so you will see me advertise that a lot, whether that be just on social media or actually having ads or do promotions and do discounts and things like that, because that is work that I actually enjoy and really am striving to move into. And so I'm just excited about that. So I am going to try and push them because I do believe in those services. And that has been one of the big changes in me over the past year, is that I've started to believe in my own work. And that is one of the biggest things and one of the biggest saviors for me in my business, is having done the groundwork to now believe in the services that I provide. The next thing that it allows me sort of to justify trying to push the work out there is the price that I am asking for. And so for me, this is the reason why I really do things for free. It's not because I undervalue the work that I'm trying to do. It's because I just don't have experience in that area. And so I can't push something that I'm not sure I can actually do. If I'm not sure that I can provide a service, I can't go out there and ask for a lot of money for a service, because that gives me no confidence whatsoever. And if anything, that just stresses me out more. And so offering a service for free, if I have to, if that's the only way I can move around that, then I'm happy to do that. But that being said, when I know that how much I'm worth, and when I know that I can provide a service, I know what I'm worth on a service. So I'm happy to put my price at the front. I'm happy to put my prices on my website, because if people are turned away by that, then that's okay. I now know what I'm worth, and I know that the work that I provide is up to the quality and standard of the price that I'm asking. I would never ask for a crazy amount of money as if I'd been in this industry for 18 years and be saying I'm worth X amount of money, because I would never be able to justify that, and I could never morally or ethically charge an amount that I didn't think I was worth. So that is one of the big things in being able to set prices that I'm comfortable with, but setting prices and then being able to stick to prices, because if I do get emails off people, it's so tempting to offer them a discount straight up because you're so excited to do the work for them, but then you've got to think about it and think, what does that say about the work you provide if you're offering them a discount straight up? And that's a whole other thing that I could talk about in the whole pricing game. But for me, being able to set prices that I'm comfortable with is super important. And I'm so glad that I've come to somewhere that I am very confident with, and somewhere that I can sit back and say that, yeah, this actively reflects the work that I'm trying to do. And then the third thing, and the last one that I really want to touch on today, is realizing the fact that the service that I offer, 99.99% of people can't offer that service. And that is just simply based on the fact that they don't have the equipment or the skills or the experience to offer the things that I can do. And remembering that is super important, because I'm constantly surrounded by people who are in the same industry as me. And so I think everyone can offer this service, and why would you choose me? But to the outsider who has no idea who a photographer is and who has never met with a photographer before, they just think that the work that I create is amazing. And so remembering that, and remembering that most people can't do what I do, regardless of the fact that there are so many people who are above me in this industry, remembering that I'm still in this industry and that I provide a service that people are still after, just allows me to have extra confidence in moving forward. And I have to keep reminding myself of that in order to stay okay with myself. I have to be able to justify that. Not only have I learnt that I'm in the 0.01% of people that offer what I do, I've also learnt that I'm the only person who can offer the things that I offer, because my service comes with a unique perspective that it's coming through the lens, if you will, of my business. No one else can have the creative input that I have on their art, because art in itself is very unique, and it comes from a different perspective regardless of who you work with. Understanding that when someone comes to me, or if I go to someone else and offer a service, or they come to me and ask for a service, they're actually asking me. They're not just after a photographer, they're after me because they know what I provide. They know the style that I work in, the style of images that I create, the style of service that I can provide whole roundedly, because we know that being a photographer is only 20% taking photos. 80% of it definitely is customer service. And so understanding that service and being able to differentiate myself from any other photographer out there is definitely something so important, so beneficial in understanding your worth and knowing where you can push forward and where it's okay to try to make a sale, because everyone knows that trying to make that sale is awkward. And there's a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety around trying to make a sale on something, let alone on a service that you don't think you provide as well as the person next door. So stepping back and saying, well, I'm not providing the same service as that person next door, it takes away the fact that you might not provide as great a service, but you provide your own service regardless. And if someone's come to you for your service, then they're after what you offer, not what the person next door offers. And knowing what your unique points are is just as important in that process of being able to sell yourself and sell the things that you know you do that no one else can do. And I think that is where I'm going to leave today's episode, guys. I've spoken probably 5 minutes over what I wanted to speak for, but that's still pretty good considering where I was this time last week and just rambling on. But I tried to keep that one a bit shorter. I hope it was interesting for you guys. I know I was a little bit excited at the start, but that is just how this week has been, and I'm very much looking forward to coming back next week. I have a very interesting episode lined up for next week. It's been one that I've been wanting to make since the start of this podcast, and it will go a long way to explaining a lot about this podcast and why I'm so inspired to be able to turn up and actually make this podcast. So if you guys are interested at all in that, stay tuned for next week's episode. But for now, I hope you enjoyed this week's episode, and if you did, the best thing you could do to support me, guys, is to share the podcast with someone else. I've been getting a lot of messages off a lot of different people who I would never have expected to have even heard of the podcast or even been listening to the podcast. So it's been really nice to have those people on board and have those people supporting me and in my corner. And so the more people that I can spread the podcast to, that would just be amazing. I know that I've asked a lot of people for reviews on the podcast, and that would be just as helpful as well if you could leave a review on the podcast, but I'm not going to make anyone try and leave a review thus far. We're not even 10 episodes in, and so to have already made your mind up about if this podcast is a great podcast is unreasonable, and I wouldn't expect that. But if you have enjoyed an episode in particular, that would be great if you could share that with someone else who you think would appreciate that episode. And so opening it up to more people to be able to hear and be able to grow in this journey that I'm on and be able to pass information on to other people is just something that I feel so privileged in, the fact that I'm able to do that. So if you guys have enjoyed any of my episodes, I would greatly appreciate it if you did share it around. But at the end of the day, I just hope you can take something away from this and these podcasts. So I'm just thrilled if you can, and I'm glad that you are still here turning up every single week. Episode 9, it's amazing, and that we're moving into episode 10 next week, and I'm super excited for that one. But until next week, guys, have a great week, and I will speak to you next Monday. Bye.